Okay. So, thanks to everybody who has stayed around to the bitter end. Appreciate it. I'm a little worried about putting everybody to sleep before you have to go home. Some tough acts to follow. I don't have any call and response to start with. I think my diagrams aren't as good as other people's, but we'll make do. And I'm going to try to, I guess, bookend a little bit Jorge's keynote, because I think he set up some interesting thematic ideas. And then we got into a lot of really good specific details about the application of WIAD and other related disciplines to the work that we do nowadays. And then I'm going to sort of retreat back into vagueness and generalities and things like that. Actually, one of the things that struck me in Jorge's talk was that Jorge said that architecture is not really a metaphor, that it's or sort of more than a metaphor, that we're doing actual architecture with a material called information. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that, and I'll stand by that, and not an architecture degree. But I am going to talk a little bit about some metaphors. I'm kind of a metaphor guy, that's how I understand things. And they relate to some of the facets of information architecture that I find continually useful in my work. All the way from the days when I was actually a content strategist at one point. And then the company got bought and they said, you're an information architect. And I said, oh, that sounds cool. I'm going to be an information architect. So probably the first information architecture I ever actually did was content inventories. Where you had to figure out where all the content was on the website and how we were organized. Over the years, I've had a lot of different titles. I've had a lot of different types of jobs. And I've always somehow been doing information architecture as at least part of my work, whether that was my title or not. Today, I'm a project manager. I still think of myself as kind of a UX person. UX is a lot of how I look at the web, how I look at digital, how I look at products. But I've taken on this job, of doing product management. And I still feel myself to be doing a lot of information architecture in this work. I recently gave a talk, actually it was an interview, I guess a sit-down interview at Baycott down in Palo Alto, where I was for several years organizing talks and just retired from doing that. And the person interviewing me had more of an HCI, academic background, research background. And he asked me kind of point blank, is IA just one of those titles people made up to get paid more? And I said, yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what I like. And I think that, although it's sort of a joke, I mean, obviously there's been a lot of rebranding and reframing and retitling of work that's maybe broadly called UX these days, but has a lot of different aspects to it. And I think that we should be realistic about that. None of these are like fixed terms. They keep changing. People seize the title because it's the job they want or because it sounds like something they want to go into. And I think that's all good. All this stuff is super new, and we shouldn't think that it's all been figured out or anything like that. So, I'm going to try to talk about three different aspects of information architecture that, like I said, relate to my work, which I'm going to call maps, schemes, and scaffolding. Or D&D, ukuleles, and backyards. To tie in with my specific examples. You see what I mean? My voice gets louder. Let's go back to maps, schemes, and scaffolding as a concept. So, to begin with, one of the main things that I've always found to be an important, critical aspect of information architecture is map making. Is actually mapping the space that you're in. I think this is part of our built-in cognitive process of understanding the world. I used to have a pet cat. And when we moved house, she spent about a day and a half running everything in the house with her cheek, figuring out where all the doors were, all the openings, all the things you could hide behind. And she was building a map in her head that she then would use to navigate that space forever after. And we do that too, without as much running, but we still do map out spaces for ourselves. And information spaces need to be mapped in a very similar way. The reason why I mentioned D&D, as we talk about maps specifically, is that if any of you ever played D&D, and it's hard to find real examples of handwritten maps, because even the drawn ones are actually people's made-up dungeons or spaces. But if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, raise your hand if you have, or if you know what I'm talking about. And if you played World of Warcraft, then you kind of know what you like. But when I was a kid back in the previous millennium and we were learning how to play Dungeons and Dragons, at least one person's job in the party was to make a map of where you were going. And as you walk down the doorway and you knock on a door and there was a beast behind it, you would write beast behind the door and open it or whatever. And you'd have graph paper and you'd fill out your levels or your maze and use that map then to return it to the space or to navigate out of it or whatever. And I find that to be a very strong and powerful metaphor for the kind of work that we do. I find that when I was a consultant working with many, many different clients, when I've been in-house working for a product company or a website, how I always start, how I always get oriented is by trying to map my environment. Sometimes that literally means mapping the website, all the links, where do they go, all the names of things, everything in the catalog. I just mentioned that content inventory a while back. Sometimes it means mapping the relationships between the different business units. You know, it might mean making a domain model. I mean, what the map actually is, here's just a bunch more of these examples of D&D maps. This is brilliant world. And I really find that there's, to me, this is information. This is an imaginary space, documented with information in map form so that other people can understand it and use it. And that's fundamentally, I think, what we're doing, at least one of the main things that we're doing when we're doing information architecture. It's another very cool, realistic graph paper where he says that you can get that 3D projection by using these here. This is an actual map of, well, it's actually two. There's one view here, and there's one from here over. This is my home in Mellow. My wife is working on a new plan for the garden. So similarly, she had to have a base map. In this case, an overhead plan, so that she knew what's she looking at, how much space is there, where are the edges, what's next to what, where does the flow have to go when someone enters into the yard and things like that. So this quality of mapping as a starting point has, as I said, permeated the work that I've done from the earliest days. Here's another example of a map that contains, in my view, information architecture. This is the famous 1970s map of the subway in New York, where some liberties were taken with actual geographic shapes and relationships to make a diagram that was sort of beautiful and somewhat easy to understand and read. And so that, the mapping starts in that D&D style where you're kind of just collecting information and relating it in a way that you can understand it. But later on in the process, if you're doing information architecture, you take what you've mapped and you create artifacts, you make maps out of that information, and then you use that to communicate to the rest of the team, to the client, to the user, to somebody, what is this picture that we're all going to agree on? What is the space that we're in? What are its hallmarks? What are its labels? How do sections of it relate to each other? And things like that. Here's some more conceptual maps, a couple New Yorker covers that show how New York people look at the world, or how they translated post 9/11 awareness of the Middle East onto their own spatial map. Here's another map of the U.S. that communicates a concept or an idea more than an actual geographical reality. So just some ideas of the way that maps are used to capture information. To apply it to my actual work, nowadays I'm head of product, I think I should have mentioned, at a startup called 7 Cups of Tea, or just 7 Cups for short. One of the things that I did when I first started working with 7 Cups last year, just doing a little bit of consulting with them before I joined full time, is I asked them to do a concept mapping exercise with me. And this was for two purposes. One was that I wanted them to spend some time thinking about what were the most important ideas embedded in the product and the implications about how those ideas related to each other. My ulterior motive was I wanted a crash course in the product. I wanted to hear all their ideas, all their concepts, and what I did was, while we were talking, if we were all in the same physical space, I would have done this with sticky notes on a whiteboard. It would have been a lot easier to move things around and diagram them. Instead, I had to work out a remote way to do it with people who are all over the country, a couple of them not even in the U.S. I researched a bunch of different tools to try to do it, and none was exactly right. And in the end, I just ended up sharing the screen and kind of doing technography, like capturing what they were talking about, in this case, an omnigraphal. And this is the version 1, or 0.1, I would call it, where I just jotted down all the words they said, and if I knew if I thought there was a relationship, I put it into place. None of the relationships, in a good concept map, you label all the arrows, and you say what the relationship is between the two maps. I also consider this a map, even though it's not a physical map of like how to walk down the street. It's a mapping of relationships, and it's used, in my case, to get a grip on these things. that was the earliest version. As we built it out and I built in more connections, I played with Omnigraphle's different sort of math topologies for these relationships to see if I could tease out anything else visibly interesting about it. Here it's just kind of a welter of terms that are really hard to read. Here's another one that's super hard to read that shows like how some of these things are interrelated. Here's one that's more like a tree or a sitemap, but you still see how interrelated these things are. And I found that in this process of concept mapping and revising the concept map, over time you have to edit. You have to say, this is too messy. We need to take these three terms that are kind of similar, and instead of having 3 arrows converging on them, let's find one term that applies to all of them and simplify that one vector on the map. And you do that over time, and then you're using your judgment about what's actually important, what's the best term to use. But as you do that, you tease out stronger and stronger ties between the concepts. Just to kind of flip through, here's another way of showing it. And it's interesting that most of these ideas are related in this circle, but a couple of them are outliers that didn't fit so easily. This is a slightly more mature and evolved version of it, where I've highlighted certain specific words related to people and started to use different diagram shapes to represent different things. These are parts of the product, these are concepts, these are human beings. It's still quite confusing, though, I would say. And there's one where it's getting a little more clear. At least we're starting to see what's being pulled together into focus. It does not. Okay. So that's a direct application, like I said, of this mapping process of information architecture to my job as a product manager. Nobody asked me to do that. I didn't have to produce this as a deliverable for anybody. It was simply a means for me to wrap my arms around a whole set of related concepts and try to figure out how to do it. I'm about to talk about music a little bit, and these are tools used to map music. In other words, these are blank. In one case, this is blank sheet music with tab, and the other are just ukulele tabs. So that if I wanted to learn how to play a song, I could write down in each case what hand position to do it at that time. So this would be like more like a template used to make a map, or to capture some information diagrammatically, which is what I think a lot of what's going on here. So that's it for maps for now. Let me talk a little bit about what I mean by schemes. I was trying to think of the right term for schemes. You could call them plans, you could call them organizing principles. And what I'm really talking about here is the conceptual meaning layer of the work that's not necessarily physically embodied anywhere in the work itself. In the case of software, I visualize this layer as being conceptually between the back end and the front end. So the back end is where the database is, it's where the code that talks to the database lives. I don't mean literally the client and the server, but just literally, there's the technical underpinnings of what we built, how it actually works, what the code says, what the data is, and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the user interface, or the user experience, the more broad term that we like to use nowadays, which is essentially the human-facing, visible, face, front, interactive, edge, sensory, heart, skin, or whatever you want to call it, of the system. And so you've got the back end with the heart, the brain, or the interior functioning. You've got the front end with the sort of where human beings touch it and how those things connect. And I imagine this IA layer, I think I first heard this concept in a presentation by Maya Design at the first IDEA conference, as a way in between those two that connects to both of them and makes sense of them. And it doesn't, like I said, exist anywhere. It's not in the code. It's not in the pixels. It's in the human beings that talk to each other when they were designing the software and when they were building it. It's on the whiteboard. It's in the diagrams. It's used as a reference. And like I said, it might be implicitly in the software. It might be referred to sometimes in the software, like terminology and labels and things like that. But on some level, it lives in people's minds and it's captured in diagrams and things like that. And so here's where I bring ukuleles into it. I bought my cheapo ukulele. That's not the worst thing in the world. It's custom, but I showed a picture of a much nicer one. The thing about a ukulele is that it's a product. It's not a digital product, but it's a product. Somebody built it, they sold it to me. But implicit in this product is a whole bunch of conceptual information. Okay? Because this product is used to play music. It's used to play music typically in the Western musical tradition. So these notes, so this ukulele is tuned to 4 notes, G, C, E, and A. And those notes are in a relationship with each other. They're all in the C scale. They're all in the C pentatonic scale. They have Well, there's a number of like mathematical relationships between them that makes them work. At the same time, we're talking about, okay, so this is an informational diagram for somebody who's trying to learn how to play the ukulele. You know, and it shows where the ukulele is, it shows where parts of the instrument, what they're called, and it has all this kind of diagrammatic information to get mapped onto the instrument so that you can learn how to position your fingers and actually play notes. And what I'm trying to say really is that if you're an instrument maker, you don't invent music, you don't invent scales, you don't invent sheet music notation, you don't invent tab or how to map the notes on the bars to specific letters of the alphabet. You inherit all of that. All of that is a scheme. It's a conceptual scheme that Western musicians and composers have evolved over time because it's unique. Because it standardizes things so that we all tune to roughly the same tones. It captures harmonic relationships that are valuable and useful in the way that music is made. And essentially it's implicitly embedded inside that instrument, and inside a piano, and inside sheet music that you buy, and inside a record that you listen to. All of those products relate to the scheme of music, notated music, composed music, physics and harmonic relationships of musical notes. And I think that that's a valuable metaphor because again, you don't have to give somebody sheet music when you give them a ukulele. You certainly can package some in there. You can give them a book that teaches them how to play, but you can also assume that they're going to figure out that part themselves. And you can walk to some other part of the world and walk into an instrument store and buy an instrument, and if it's not incredibly exotic or out of a wildly different tradition than the one that we're from, you can play basically the same notes and all the same songs on that instrument, even if you've never seen it before. It used to amaze me when I was a kid that musicians could pick up an instrument they never played before, and sometimes they could play it. I just didn't really understand how that worked, and because I've learned to play a little bit of music myself, I now see that you can fake your way on any instrument once you learn what its notes are and sort of zero in on the parts that you know how to do. So I found this to be a pretty useful metaphor. And you know, there are very complex and difficult and challenging ways to study music and learn music theory, and there's ways that things are annotated that are very hard to understand and you have to study for years. And then there's basically these cheats, like tab, like just showing people literally put your fingers on these frets to make this note. But you can still see, if you're an information architect, if you like information, if you like to see relationships spelled out and mapped out or gridded out, that these documents themselves are kind of beautiful in a way. I mean, this one shows all the different C chords that you can play. A regular C major, a C7, a C minor, a C minor 7, a diminished. And then it goes down to the Ds and it takes you, the D flats, it takes you through all those. And then the Ds and it takes you through all of those. And as I started learning this stuff over the past maybe decade or so, it really kind of brought me back to my early days as a math geek, playing with graph paper, playing with numbers, seeing how certain patterns repeated themselves and changed after a while. One of my brothers is a bell ringer. He's one of those guys who rings bells in bell towers. And we often compare notes on this kind of stuff because there's very interesting patterns of the numbers moving through and changing. So this may seem far afield from software, but I find that you sometimes have to study and find these schematics yourself, or these schemes that underlie things. In the case of inventing stuff, you sometimes have to create that scheme. The scheme may not exist in the world yet. And as I said, it may not be written down anywhere as one of the tasks that you need to do to complete your project. I put these things in order. When I talk about first mapping, then coming up with a scheme, and then we'll talk about scaffolding, I see that as a kind of a sequence. Mapping is the discovery, it's the research. It's where you take information in and try to understand it and see how things relate to each other. The scheme, coming up with a scheme, is deciding what is going to be your organizing principle. What is the plan? Are we going to tie it to the Western musical scale? Or are we going to do music designed to be played on a 23-note scale? You can certainly do that if you decide to, if you can find a market for that kind of thing. So there is that stage where you take information in, and this is not something that you do all in your head because you're a genius. You do it with your team. You do it by debating what's the point of this thing, what does it mean, what are we expecting users to know, what traditions are we building on, where do we have to break traditions. Maybe we don't want to stick with just the gestures Apple lets us use. Maybe we can develop our own conceptual scheme of gestures. Here's another ultra simple way. When I'm trying to, a bunch of these things are sheet music for Sweet Virginia, Rolling Stone song I'm trying to run lately. This is the easiest thing. When you look it up on the web, you'll find someone who just said, play the D chord over that word, play the B B7 chord or that word. When you get to that word, play an A. It doesn't show you how to play those, but if you know those chords, this is enough information to actually learn how to play that song. There's some more stuff. This is just all stuff you can find for free on the internet, all the ukulele tab. But you can see many different ways of annotating the music. You know, this shows you literally how to do it on a sheet form. This is kind of a more computer-based version of the tab, where it's saying, playing the 13th fret of the B string, and the 12th fret of the G string, and the 14th fret of the D string. And people actually figure that out and learn to play from these things. This is somebody's handwritten breakdown of how to play Satisfaction, just with the chords, and you play E and you rest, and then you play A and then you rest. So again, I don't want to belabor you too much with music. This is another way that you look up music and develop schemes. Sort of effort schemes that already exist. You find people who've codified this information for you in video form, and if necessary, you can have the tab to your arm as a cheat. That's always helpful. So another guy who liked to build elaborate schemes, and concepts before going out and actually building his products. So just a couple of drawings from Leonardo. Some machines that he eventually built, some that he just designed and never actually built. And look, he also wrote sheet music. This is another nice, this is both a map, but also I think it has an interesting scheme behind it. If you were wandering around GA today, you may have noticed this map of the floor we're on. They have a bunch of codes for concepting, convening, .comming, demoing, designing, hacking, etc. And then different rooms indicate which of those activities are suitable for that room. So there's an interesting, this is both a spatial map that shows you where these rooms are and how they relate to each other, but it's also an informational map that tells you what are the appropriate activities. And not only what's the right thing to do in this room, but it's also sort of making a statement as a whole of these are the things that we do. It's communicating something about either the values here or the practices that are important. I mean, one of the topics that's called out individually is tweeting. So that tells you something about your own self. Another way that schemes are often referred to in architecture and even information in architecture is blueprints. In fact, if you look at some of the early IA books for the web, they often explicitly mention blueprints in their subtitle or just in their description about what they're talking about. I think it's a metaphor everybody understands. It's the plan, it's the coherent plan that you made that captures what you're going to build and is used to communicate with the whole team how you're going to build it. So these are literally the traditional blueprints that are actually blue. They're still using that same style in the future, apparently. So there's no problem learning that. It's going to be relevant. And I think so this is some early sketches I did when I first started working with 7 Cups on just a navigation paradigm. And we didn't use it. It's not actually, there's a number of things that we dropped. This actually shows, this is mostly for myself. It wasn't intended to communicate to other people. So I was trying to show that each top, bottom, left, and right should be swipeable. And then I said if you swipe up, you're going to come to the screen where you have 2 choices. If you choose this one, it's going to take you to a screen that looks like this, and you can continue in that direction. And I said if you swipe down, it's going to take you to a place where you have 2 choices, and if you choose that one, you're going to get sub-choices. And it was really just me trying to think about how are we going to orient our users in space. So we're going to give them a mental model that says going this way means one thing, and going off to this way means something else. And in the end, we didn't actually fall through on that very much. It just was a direction that I explored for a little while to see whether this is going to be a useful organizing principle. And it's just on the navigation surface. It's not deep in the heart of what is the product and what does it mean to be on what screen. But I still see it as part of this information architecture process of taking ideas and in this case trying to develop a schema out of them, or scheme I should say. These are a bunch of other diagrams I've made over the course of the last year to try to show how different sections of the site might relate to each other, how they might be built out of building blocks. This is sort of an onboarding tour I was trying to explore. Again, this is more wireframes, just again showing how the different sections might potentially relate to each other, trying to get a user to take one step for their wellness or their own mental health, which is one of the things we do with 7 Cups. This was an idea of whether at any given screen could you always have a little button that could jump you to the alternate thing. Because just to explain a little background, at 7 Cups of Tea, And the main thing that we offer is text-based chat with an active listener. A person who's going to sort of help you the way a therapist might help you, but with minimal training, just the ability to be a good listener. And a lot of people who are in the right age range or the right funding range or in the society where maybe there's a stigma around seeking help for mental health, find that they can just go online and do a search, find our website, get our app, whatever, and talk to a stranger when they're feeling bad. But we also offer self-help things you can do, like listening to mindfulness tapes, or reflecting on what you're grateful about, or writing down things that you've accomplished. And so what we wanted was something where on any given screen you could either jump to a chat, if you weren't in a chat, or you could jump to a mindfulness exercise if you were in a chat. And again, this is another navigation paradigm that we didn't use because in the end it didn't really fit with the overall design. But these are things that I mocked out and explained as I was exploring whether or not we wanted to do this. Ultimately, we also came up with this bottom of the screen set of menus, each of which takes you to one or another part of the product. And this was another diagram that I built, essentially a map capturing how I think this navigation system should work, so that everybody who had to build it out, the engineers basically, would understand what it is that we were making. And then the last thing that I did, and this is something that I think any IA from any time ever, at least in the digital era, would recognize, which is basically a site map, or in this case, both a site map and a product navigation map. One of the things I discovered when I joined 7 Cups was that there were about 4 or 5 different navigation schemes already in play. The website had a different navigation if you were a guest, if you logged in as a member, or if you become a listener who listens to members. In each case, you had completely different top nav, you had a custom nav, you had different things in your footer. And so, working with the people in the community, with the staff, and with my own experience, I went through iteration after iteration of this site map. This is just showing a couple of ways that it changed over time. And a lot of the idea there was to figure out a common paradigm that would work on the site and the app. Because up to that point, the site and the app had different navigation, they used different terminology. Nothing that you learned using the site was applicable using the app or vice versa. There was just great deal of inconsistency, or incoherence. So a big part of this was that I wanted to say, look, in either case there's going to be 5 main sections. You know, the path that I'm on, getting into a chat, checking out the rest of the community, looking at my own stats, or reading the feed. And so now if you go to the website, those are the top 5 menu items, and if you go to the app, those are the 5 navigation buttons on the bottom. Already we're outgrowing that. We've added a way for campuses to set up their own self-help system, and it has its own menu item. My boss keeps putting more things up in the menu, and then now it doesn't wrap well when you're in the wrong browser size. And so I have to actually go. And again, I think anybody who's ever been called in IA or been information architecture has experienced coming up with a site map, outgrowing it, having to refactor it, and figure out what should be a new organizing scheme that's going to make sense of you. So these are schemes too, you know, and then they're used as a basis for doing the actual work of building. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was this idea of scaffolding. And this came to me as sort of, again, as a metaphor. This is a shot of my old backyard in Oakland before I moved down to the peninsula to be closer to work. And the main thing I want to draw your attention to is a grape arbor, or a grapevine, and that's what those red leaves are there at the top, that's actually growing on some scaffolding, basically. It's really just a couple wooden planks that were put from the tree over to the top of that garage, and then the grapes were trained along to grow on the top of it. And I spent back when I still lived in Oakland, I had a hammock under there. I don't think you can see the picture. No, it's cold. I used to have a hammock under here. And I would spend a lot of time lying in that hammock playing my ukulele. And I could swear on some afternoons that I could see the grapevine wrapping around me in the hammock. You know, I'd sort of look up and suddenly it was a little further along. And then take a little bit of a nap and suddenly it was on my face or something. And it's a little bit eerie because, I mean, you know, I may have been imagining it, but certainly if you came back a day later, the thing had progressed. And, you know, if you do stop motion on something like this, it will look like an animal or a creature that is pursuing a path. And if you actually study, and when I say study, I didn't stare at it for a while in the afternoon, because that's what I did, how a grapevine works. It has just a couple really simple principles. Basically, it has a main vine, and at intervals it has these little nodes where it can send out branches like most plants do. And there's a slight twist. They tend to be like, I think it's clockwise, but they come out and they twist a little bit, which changes the overall main thrust of the vine a tiny little bit. And the other thing is that these shoots that come out are sticky on the end. So in a sense, what the vine is doing is it's sort of blindly reaching out. And if it hits anything, it sticks to that thing. And then the next bunch of shoots kind of start to wrap that thing. And that's how it will wrap itself around a tree limb. But it's also how you can train it to grow up a piece of wood or a wire mesh or something like that. Which is why I find the scaffolding concept so useful for our work. Especially because more and more often the work that I've done since my days at Yahoo with the pattern library, doing social design patterns in the O'Reilly book I wrote with Aaron Malone called Design of Social Interfaces. A lot of the architecture, and it's at Cups where we're connecting people to each other. A lot of the architectural work that I've done with software in the last maybe 5 or 10 years has been about creating spaces for people, just like actual physical architecture. And the thing about people is that you can't make them do stuff. You can just provide them with opportunities, and you can encourage them, and you can understand human nature as best as possible, or grapevine nature in the case of this metaphor. So the idea for the way that I find scaffolding to be a useful concept when I apply it to this kind of design is that if you're designing information spaces that people are going to inhabit, and social spaces where people are going to actually interact with other human beings, then mostly what you're doing is creating the context in which people are going to have these experiences. You're not actually defining their experiences for them. You're not forcing them to have specific interactions. You're setting up boundary conditions and rules and structures. The metaphor of like a building, you're creating where the doors are, where the rooms are, how the circulation works, and things like that. In the case of building something for a great number of people, we've got thousands and thousands of people coming through 7 Cups every day. You're doing something that feels in some ways a lot more organic. You're not building necessarily for every single interaction. You're building for sort of an aggregated set of interactions that are going to accumulate and develop their own character over time. And I find this idea of a scaffolding that creates some structure that is sensitive to and aware of what the tendencies are of the life that is actually using that scaffolding, can shape behavior without sort of constricting it or forcing it into any one specific shape. So there's an aspect of both trying to, as a designer, have control, trying to give structure, trying to, what was it the two Cups said about, guide rather than drive towards results. But at the same time, you kind of want to work with the creative people and what they like to do and what they actually want to do. You want to encourage certain behaviors, and you want to sort of stop other behaviors from happening. So just to bring it a little bit back to my own work world, if you're a member of our site, this is a test account I have where I put a little major mask on my regular avatar. I'm a unicorn at 7 Cups, and since we're a startup, it's me putting on every kind of designer, but also I don't know if that's actually true. But so this is my user's growth path, and on any given day, if I come to 7 Cups and click on my path, it will give me something good to do for myself. It'll tell me to watch these puppies play or reflect on gratitude or something like that. If I take a step, it will animate this cup and fill up its level a little bit more. And if I get it up to 4, it will congratulate me. If I don't come back for a day, the level will go down a little bit. If I don't come back another day, it'll go down to half. We say the cup is down less than half full because we're optimists. But in the end, we will nag you a little bit. We'll say, oh, you're letting your cup get empty. Why don't you come back and do something else that's good for yourself? And this is, it's not the only thing that we're doing. We're giving people feedback. There's kind of Stack Overflow type gamification stuff. We're trying to raise money, and there's a little jar full of hearts, and it's not full yet, so we want you to feel bad and give us some money to fill it up. We're notifying you that some people have talked to you, so you should feel like people are interested in you, and you should come back and engage. So we've got all these little hooks, all these little prods, all these little shaping aspects to the design that are supposed to guide behavior. None of it says you have to do something, none of it will penalize you or kill you if you don't do it. But in every case, you'll be either rewarded for doing something we want you to do, or the experience will get richer or better if you actually respond to the stimuli. And so, to my mind, that third statement, sort of, if you want to sort of take these three aspects of information architecture, again, I just find that, I guess, these stand out to me as the most useful or persistently useful techniques that I learned from information architecture, that I consider to be information architecture, that I always find myself applying to my work. So again, there's this idea of mapping and understanding the information space that you're in, and capturing it and defining it as a schema that you can communicate to a scheme that you can communicate to other people, and an organizing principle that you can use to sort of animate your work and help make the tough decisions about what is this really that we're building, and what does it have to work with, what is it part of. And then lastly, trying to translate those ideas into some sort of structure or scaffolding that you can use as you build out the actual solution to try to guide behavior or to produce the kind of results that you want. This is something that another member of my team, she's actually the community manager, Laura, made to try to show our members, our users, what pathway there is through the site as they gain experience. They can start off as a member, they become a listener, they do a lot of chats. If they want to volunteer, they can join a group, they can choose an area to focus on. This was her first draft of it. Her final draft is this, okay? And then we shared it with everybody to show them like different ways they can participate in our community. And you know, I took more on our time and said, we're an information architecture. So, one last point. I think this book was mentioned before. If you're a product manager, or if you're not a product manager, you should buy this book. But I think that Abby's book, How to Make Sense of Any Mess, it's basically a book on information architecture, but it puts it in completely neutral terms. In other words, anybody could learn information architecture from this book. Not just what it means, but actually how to do that work. And I think as a product manager, if I were hiring a product manager, I would handle this book the first day. Because it's basically about getting yourself oriented in a messy situation and figuring out how to sort it out and just make sense of it. So I just want to throw that plug in. One other, if you're interested in these kind of concepts of information architecture and how they apply to product design nowadays, a slightly more difficult book that's also really worth reading is Design for Context. I think is the title. Andrew Hinton's book. Sorry? Well, Understanding Context. Sorry, that's the background. I find it very enjoyable to read, and it definitely makes me think, and it's highly applicable to the idea of making software and understanding the context in which it will be used. So I'd say this is a great beginner book of IA, and then if you find that you like IA and it's actually enjoyable as a way of organizing your thoughts, then I would also strongly recommend the interest book. So, thank you. How are you?
So I'm wondering if you develop schemas for several arrays, not possible organization, with many different users and faculty staff. If I know the schema, how do I test with each individual user who might not share the same perspective? Oh, this makes sense for what I want.
Well, okay, so I think that and again, I used the idea of a schema or schema, these are kind of bigger terms, but I used it loosely because I think that there are many different models, many different ways of mapping the concepts or the actual navigation of the site. There's a lot of things that can be codified and captured in the community of everybody. In the case of like, say, the concept model. One thing I like about a concept model is you do it before you do something like expectations. It's not about let's be on this thing, let's be on that thing. It's first like what are we talking about? Is this about helping people? Is this about fixing a problem? Is this about come in, what are the ideas that make sense out of this work? In the case where we have a lot of different stakeholders, we do want them as much as possible to converge on a shared idea of what is this larger project that we're all part of. And the truth is, some systems are so complex that different people see it in different ways. So you don't necessarily have to have a single unitary point of view that everybody can agree to and understand. You overdo it and try to shuffle everything into one idea. But to a large extent, we should be able to get people on the same page, which means that one thing, in the making of, say, a concept model, I would have representatives from different stakeholder groups participating in that idea, saying, what are the words that we talk about? If you don't have a salesperson in the room, you're not going to hear the terms they use every day for doing their work. You don't hear, like I say, an academic, they don't know how to improve something trying to coordinate there. But one of the things is that you are trying to get kind of a lingua franca, like a common vocabulary that everybody can sign on to. So it doesn't have to cover everything. But there should be some alignment, right? I mean, if not, it's almost impossible. In the end, you're not going to be able to make it. If you can't get everybody to agree that we're all part of one thing, then you have to make several things. You have to make one website for this group and a different website for that group. Because in a sense that it's this work of coming up with the mental model or the scheme or the concept behind it that then translates into the work that you do. So you don't have to do that, but without it, it's a lot harder to get that kind of experience. And if you find that you can't get it, that might tell you something more about the problem space than about the solution you have to get. You may say, like, these people don't even agree on why this nonprofit exists, or what our mission is, or what the thing is that we do. So it's a useful exercise if only to tease that stuff out. And then, one thing is that, I think that we don't talk about this too much right now, it's something I find myself talking about a lot lately. All of these models, all of these rules, all of these processes are just ways to get to a result. None of them are perfect, and none of them have to be followed, and none of them are possible. I mean, they all break when you use them in my experience. I've never gone through any UX process or any information architecture process and had it work out the way I wanted to and got to do everything I wanted to do in the project. You always cut corners, you always run out of time, you always don't have all the people on teams, and you just have to, you go to war with the kind of solution. So I don't mean like being a solution or anything like that, but I think you have to have these ambitions and these goals, and you have to try to apply your skills and these techniques that you know. And then you also have to take them into the real world and deal with the fact that the real world doesn't care about stuff the world goes that way, and it has other ideas about politics and money and stuff like that, and you have to still make the project work. So there is a point where you still have to let go of your need for it to be perfect or for it to be solved 100%, and get a rough working consensus and move forward with that.
Thanks for sharing your process, Christian. I'm curious about iteration. So if you say a new concept is introduced, does that mean you need to reflow through to scaffolding again? And can you iterate internally? Like, what does iteration mean for you?
Sure. Well, that's a good question. I think to me these are not yet. So I kind of laid out like do this, and do this. So it's kind of a recipe that I follow. And it's more like, hey, I've noticed that I always do this, and then I sort of pretend to do this, and then it looks like I also do this. It's not really a plan. It's like just that seems to work for me. And so I don't see it as an ABC, now the project is done, but something that I'm constantly cycling through, and also kind of like at a macro level and a micro level. So you may not, at the macro level, reconceive the whole company or the whole project every time. That may just do that once to get a grip on it, and then maybe 6 months later or a year later to say, are we still really doing the same thing now, or has it changed into something else? So everything is revisiting the later and all of that. I think similarly, that idea of coming up with some kind of organizing principle or conceptual level of how things relate to each other should be a somewhat stable thing, at least for the duration of the project. It doesn't mean you can't revisit it or discover that it's breaking down, it's not really a meaning or meaning. So there's that iteration into this system. But the goal would be that once everybody's kind of agreed, we're a product company and our product is supposed to help people be more active and Like there should be some sort of kind of, you should be able to ask anybody, what do we do, and they can all talk about the same thing. And also you didn't really get that consensus, or we didn't communicate like that common organizing theme or concept. I think in the building part, where there's the scaffolding, the building up the scaffolding that's sort of going to grow into the thing that you're trying to make, or the thing you're trying to make is going to go on. I think that's closer to like the edge of making, and therefore you tend to iterate faster, learn faster from that, and change your plans much more frequently, and discover that, oh, the plant doesn't like that, so let's replant it, or let's pull it out and put something else in. I guess in some way, I'm just looking at some, as I'm thinking through it. In a sense, you expect to do your iterating mostly, more rapidly in the building. But then if you found that you were sort of running into a system, why is this always happening? How come every time you do it, it doesn't happen the way you thought? You sort of have to come back now and question your concepts and your principles and your organizing concepts that you decided you thought were going to get animated and drive your project forward, because you may be getting evidence that it's not really how it was. It doesn't work with us, it doesn't work the way we thought it was, it doesn't have the same material substance that we thought it had. And I think if you, then the idea is that if you can't repair your model, you probably have to go back and maps and stuff. The other thing is that the situation changes. So like I mentioned, some of the cops said, oh, we're going to start promoting ourselves to campuses and to employers, and hoping that they build a free system using our platform, and then they pay us later on when they want our services. So that means just in navigation, we have to promote the ability to do that. And now my perfect scheme of 5 things, there's a 6th thing, and it's not really parallel to the other one, so it's not A, makes me cry. I have to like think of, more about, okay, well, does everybody need to see that? Because actually, some users are never going to do that. So I'm a little bit back in the drawing board there. I'm back in the remapping, and I'm mapping something that's changing like my own hands, so it's a little bit frustrating from that point of view. But I'm facing up to that fact that I developed a contingent model that helped us redesign the website and relaunch the app, and already we've outgrown it, and I'm kind of back to square one. And that's the slide.
Christian, I can talk loud too. Christian, you said something I really loved. You said that the notes and the tabs of the ukulele are beautiful. And this is not a practical question, but do you feel like schemes can ever be art?
Yeah, I like that question. They can certainly be beautiful. Both in the sense of elegance, like a good scheme is elegant. There's that beauty that mathematicians talk about. You boil it down. You found out that you don't need 11 different things. It's really just 2 things. One has 2 classes. There's that thing when you get simplicity, and you get things that sort of feel right. And there's that kind of beauty. I also think that I used to joke at one point that IAs were like designers who couldn't draw. It's not right. And something that another person, Peter, once said that asking if content strategies are just giving information. But I think he was noticing that a lot of people didn't have strategy. And noticing there was a lot of information. But I think I would, to me, this gets into like what's art and also art versus design. And I feel like art, in my world, art is an expressive thing that is not that interested in constraints, and is much more about freedom and getting people to have certain kinds of experiences. I think design partakes of that. It's clearly in an art tradition, but it works much more with needing constraints and having sort of purposes of the art that is responsible for that. That's kind of theoretical stuff. I think that information architecture artifacts, like maps and like documents of schemes and things like that, can absolutely be beautiful to look at and to contemplate. And I think it actually helps. I mean, there's probably an extreme, you can probably over-design your artifacts. Right? I mean, some people spend too much time making a beautiful wiring because you make like a big stuff. So there's a limit to how much you should be embellishing diagrams. things like that. It's not exactly what you're asking, but it relates like that. But I also think that's why I said the thing about IAs being designers to get laws. And sometimes information, architecture artifacts are like studios in other. They're only black and white, and they have no such proportions. They're trying to show you that they're not the design, so they look wrong, awkward, and stuff like that. And I don't think that's really critical either, because I think that a site map or a wireframe or a prototype that doesn't have full visual design in it yet is still an object that still has aesthetics. And I think that actually a lot of the visual architects can spend a little bit of time making beautiful information, visual information objects that help people they work with understand what they're doing. And as I said, maybe not the person with the IA title, maybe just the person who's sort of IA-ish on a team who likes to do that stuff, who likes to make big posters with big diagrams where everybody stand around looking at it and enjoying it. Yeah, this is what we do. That's a cool way to do it. Sure. Well, I mean, all these terms kind of slice up the pie of things, where they frame the work around different focus points. So I kind of lived through a period where a lot of people who were called IAs started wanting to be called interaction designers, or a lot of people coming into the field refer to the idea of being interaction designer to being an IA. But often it looked to me like it was largely a lot of the same kind of work. In that case, what I thought was interesting there was really what we were deciding was the most important part of the work. The interaction designer says, well, I'm a designer, and they say, I'm interested in interaction, I'm interested in what changes, what happens when a person touches the screen or makes a selection. I'm interested in dynamism, motion on the screen, or changing the stage, and stuff like that, which is not necessarily implicit in what an IA is. An IA can do work that's completely static and never at all. So people saw that as like more reflective of the Ajax and web pages that change as you work on and things like that. An information architect, in some ways, the appeal of that term is to focus on the information itself. The idea that we're making stuff out of information, just like products made out of information. Information is the substance. So the IA is a little bit, the person who frames things as under information architecture is a little bit more thinking about the material. They're still thinking about people, they're thinking about how people interact with it. But they're saying the focus point is how do you work with other information. Interaction designer is saying, you know, I don't really care about information per se, I care about human beings and how they interact with things. And either, whether one of those things is your title or not, or whether part of your work is doing one of those things, user research is an inherent input into the design process. So it goes along with everything. You can't do information architecture well without user research. You can't do interaction design well without user research. You can't do UX without user research. Not really UX. Do you have to be a researcher? Well, it helps if you know how to research and can do research. It depends on the size of the team and the people involved. If you are a user researcher, again, depending on how the work is split up, but one thing I heard from user researchers in larger organizations is that they don't get to do any design. Essentially, they do the research, they get their findings, they give their report, and then they're asked to leave the room to design the actual happen. But I also like design. So sometimes it's just the patient holding of the titles. I've moved from bigger companies to smaller companies. I'm a startup. So I have the luxury of, I get to do user research, but there isn't a research besides it. I get to do the IAs. I don't know what that is. I do the product. I do UX. I do customer service. It's a PhD program. You need to do what I do. So it's more like these are all, I mean, absolutely need user research to build a great experience, to understand. It's inherent in all of us. Whether the IA, whether the person when you're doing information architecture, are you also a person who has that user research? Can you do information architecture without making inputs about the user research? So I don't know if that's getting on the phone.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, again, you get questions like this a lot. What does this job mean? curiosity or wisdom program. So it's like instead of information writing. And it's like, so there's a certain amount of making up these terms